The African-American talk radio station in town. 910 AM Superstation. We're the voice of facts.
Folks, I don't care what your position is about the incident that involved Virgil Smith and his ex-wife. The fact of the matter is a plea deal was reached, and young Mr. Smith honored every condition of his probation. He had to resign from the office that he held at the time he took his plea deal, and that was it. When the prosecutor's office tried to say, okay, and you can't run again, almost sounds like the sentence they gave me. They say, wait, we want you off the bench, and we're going to keep you from running for the next trillion years. But the circuit court said, no, you can say that he leaves office. You can say that he goes to jail. You can say that he pays the fine. You can say that he's on probation, but that's it. You cannot reduce a criminal penalty, a sentence, or a fee in exchange for a civil agreement to not run again for public office. So Virgil Smith is absolutely legally able to run for office.
We are 910 AM Superstation. 910 AM Superstation is the voice of the people. Don't believe me? Just listen.
Great programming. Inspirational.
I know there's some good info on 910 AM Superstation.
The latest promo for the 4 to 7 slot at the end says, the Goon Squad's on speed dial. Got me listening to reruns up to the dial.
OMG. A-listers on the radio.
So when you think of 910 AM Superstation, we want you to tune in, call in, and don't forget to find us on social media. 910 AM Superstation gives you the flip side, the real side. This is our side.
3, 2, 1.
You're listening to 910 AM Superstation, Detroit's only urban talk radio station. The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 910 AM Superstation or Adele Media. You're listening to 910 AM Superstation, Detroit's only urban talk radio station.
And welcome to the Wayne Bradley Show on 910 AM, your Superstation. And oh yes, I had to come in this morning with a little bit of the MSU fight songs. Just a great way to start my Monday morning. Sorry for all you Wolverines. I had to start your morning like that. No, I'm not. I'm not sorry at all. Who am I kidding? It was a great weekend. The Spartans were able to pull off a victory in Ann Arbor. Once again, delivering Jim Harbaugh another loss, guaranteeing for another year he's going to waver in mediocrity. He's going to lose to Michigan State and lose to Ohio State. I swear I don't know what all the hype is about with that guy. He's, and at some point, I've already made the prediction yesterday, he'll be leaving the U of M Wolverines and headed back to the Indianapolis Colts at some point to coach his guy, Andrew Luck. So if you're a Wolverine and you're listening this morning, it's just beginning some of the hurt that's about to happen up there in Ann Arbor. They had to be rough losing that game at home like that in the rain, but this is just the beginning. Jim Harbaugh is not winning the big games, folks, and we got a lot to talk about today, but I just wanted to start my day off with a little bit of that. Just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful day on Saturday. So we're going to talk about a few different things today. We're going to talk, I guess we can start locally. Yesterday at the Detroit Lions game, there were, it was reported in the Free Press, 8 people that showed up to protest the protesters. The guys that came in to protest the guys taking a knee. There were T-shirts and posters that said, kneel for, what did it say? Kneel for the Lord and stand for the anthem. And all of 8 people showed up to support this cause. Folks, sports has never been something that divides America unless you're just cheering for 2 different teams. And I understand the president feels the way he feels, but everyone isn't the president. And those guys yesterday that were protesting, and I know a few of them, they did that because the president said something about it. If they hadn't said anything about it, they'd be doing something else that weekend. Maybe they'd have been enjoying the game. I don't know. But the American people are not. I mean, football is just one of those. It's one of our pastimes. Yeah, we might argue, and there might be some folks that are disappointed that these guys have taken a knee during the anthem. But guess what? They're going to still watch football. I was willing to protest football for a couple weeks. Really, my protest had more to do with not just Colin Kaepernick, but the way they were going to punish Ezekiel Elliott, for my Cowboys, my beloved Cowboys. So I thought it was more of just sending a message, but I didn't anticipate that my boycott would stop the NFL from doing what it's been doing, which is delivering an entertaining product. A lot of folks are forgetting that these guys are taking a knee before the game. And again, I've had this discussion with many people. A lot of people seem to feel that, and these are just the perspective. I have a very diverse group of friends. I have the friends that I've grown up with, from the same neighborhoods, and we have one common understanding about it. And when I talk to my conservatives, my patriots, the other folks that I hang out with, they're just more upset that at the time he chose to do the protest, which kind of nullifies the whole point with me with free speech. But again, they're mad that he did it and it was directed at the flag. Now, I've had people say he was disrespecting soldiers, disrespecting the country. I hear all these people say they hate their country, they're this, they're that. But it was a military veteran that told Colin Kaepernick that was the proper way to honor and respect those who have fallen in war, and to make sure that he did pay his respects towards veterans. So when I hear some of these folks saying, "Oh, we're only, it's because of that," I'm like, well, he got his method from a military veteran, and I've encountered a lot of military veterans that say, "Hey, he does have that freedom of speech. I don't agree with him," and I think that's what I try to point across to people, because we'll talk about this more even as this issue, the free speech issue. I'll give you an example. The losers in Charlottesville showed up again on Saturday out in Charlottesville. The Richard Spencer and his little merry band of patriots, right? They showed up there. No one heard about it. No one talked about it. And they said they'll be back again. But you know what? If you continue to ignore them, no one cares. But they have the freedom of speech to go there, all 50 or 100 of them, make a lot of noise over absolutely nothing. Again, crying over participation trophies is what I call it, because that's all most of these Confederate monuments are, participation trophies for losers. I said that before, and I don't mind keep saying it, because, these guys are still fighting for it. And again, the best thing to do is to simply ignore them. There was no riots going on there. You know why? Because they didn't promote it, and they quietly came there and marched and did what they had to do, and they left. I think even idiots like them should have the right to free speech. That's how consistent I am. I don't, from the most woke group of black folks to the most craziest group of white folks. They should all have their right to free speech. I shouldn't get to dictate it. I shouldn't get to say when and where they get to do it. That's why it's called free speech. Yesterday I made the comment, and I probably ticked off a couple people, and I hope that I didn't offend anyone with this analogy, but I said, why is it that in October all these NFL players are wearing all this pink, pink socks, pink gloves, and and I said, you know what they're doing? They're making awareness of an issue, breast cancer, which is an important topic, an important issue that affects Americans across the board, black, white, it doesn't matter. We've all known someone, and I think that is the key difference. People say, "Oh, it's the way they protest." No, the key difference is that everyone in America, you don't have to go too far out to find a way that you've been affected by, whether it's breast cancer or some kind of cancer. So it's easier to rally people around that issue because, quite simply, more people are affected by it. It's hard to get folks to stand up against what we call police brutality because, it just doesn't affect the same amount of people and the same group of people the way it does when we're starting to talk about cancer. And I get that, but I wanted to get to the original point was they do it to spread awareness to an issue. And that is what Colin Kaepernick did. Now, the difference is people take issue with the way he did it. But I said that's about as stupid as me complaining about guys wearing pink during the game. It distracts my eyes. I want to just watch football. You know, the way these guys were talking were, hey, I just want to focus on the game. You know, I've heard so many guys, just let them focus on football. Let's not involve politics in my sports. Well, you know, it was a issue that they wanted people to be. It's not politics when we're talking about police brutality. That's what I understand. Like, you know, even in what I do, that's not a political issue. That's a societal issue that we should all care about equally. And I shouldn't be mad when, again, I'm not mad when NFL players wear all the pink because I appreciate the fact that they're trying to bring awareness to an important issue. And I think that people should feel the exact same way about guys like Colin Kaepernick and some of these NFL players that are bringing awareness to an issue that, again, the difference is we're all willing to talk about the solutions and how it's affected us knowing people with cancer, but it's only affected the minority in particular when we're talking about issues of police brutality. Now, what I will say is that because you rely on all these different African-American men from these different communities for your means of entertainment on Sundays, it would seem to me that you have 1 minute before the game starts to respect their freedom of speech and still get out there and cheer them on after they have taken their quiet protests. You don't get any more submissive than taking a knee, okay? And so there was no aggression, no disrespect. And I just, I thought that we had moved kind of past this even a couple weeks ago. And then the vice president yesterday goes to the game. San Francisco 49ers are in town, one of the first organizations that was taking a knee. And he left after the anthem because a few of the players took a knee. And my thing is, people don't understand the logistics and the costs and the planning it takes to have a president or a vice president at a football game like that. It's a logistical nightmare. It costs, a nice amount of money to have him there, from the security details to the Secret Service to travel, everything. And my thing is, if you knew that they were going to take a knee, which they've been doing, why even show up? There was something else that happened spectacular yesterday. This is Wayne Bradley, football fan here talking yesterday. Peyton Manning had his statue commemorated to him over the weekend. Haven't heard anything about that. One of the greatest quarterbacks of all time had a statue commemorated in his name, put in front of the stadium in Indianapolis over the weekend. And the only thing we're talking about is that the vice president left right after the anthem was played. Now, he has the right to do that. He has the right to free speech. And I just think that, again, we put more on the focus on what was never the issue, which is what the president said, and it's not about that. It wasn't about disrespecting players, and I'll continue to say that. I'm not going to spend all my time harping on it, but I just want people that are listening and, my conservative friends so they can hear it from a place where it's not coming from a place of aggression, not coming from a place of anger. This is just common sense. Freedom of speech issue. It's not necessarily a political one. Again, I think if young white men were being killed by police officers and no justice was being served, I think that more people would care about that issue. I mean, and I don't want that to happen for people to have that, but it's the point that when you compare cancer and you compare this, a lot more people, it's a lot more larger net of people that have been affected by it. And I had some guy come on my page last night and say he posted some stat, of course, about black-on-black crime and how that needs to be the focus. But listen, no one's denying that is not an issue. We're not ignoring that. We're not saying that it's not an issue. But when it comes to justice against police officers, a lot of people are saying, well, that should not be an issue. And that's just ridiculous. We tax-paying citizens, citizens of the United States of America have the right they should have their freedom of speech protected, but they should also have their civil rights protected and should not have them violated by the same people that have sworn an oath to protect those freedoms and protect their citizens. And so those are the things that we need to be really talking about. And, again, the guys that spent, I know one gentleman drove 4 hours from the UP yesterday to come down and protest in Detroit. Now, he might have done some other activism while he was here and spoke up on behalf of some other candidates and things of that nature. But he drove down there to do that protest. And I just think that there's so many more things you can do with your time. And if you're willing to come down to Detroit and do that, then, hey, man, I've got all kind of activism you can get involved in that might be productive. And that's what I'm saying, is that let's just get back to enjoying football. Let the politicians do what they do, but let's get back to just enjoying the game. Let's stop arguing and bickering because, again, the NFL is not really going to suffer. The few people that are boycotting and things like that, they're bringing more attention to themselves than they are than any issue. The guy that organized a protest here in Detroit, he had more newspaper headlines this week. And I sometimes I wonder if that's what some people are more excited about, is getting the newspaper and things to call you to talk about something. But when 8 people showed up, to me, it kind of just it shows that people need to just focus. Let's get back to enjoying your football on the weekend, and then we'll go back to arguing about politics or whatever else you want to argue about later in the week. So, we've already got a call. It's pretty early this morning. I appreciate that. We're going to bring Michael on the show. Michael, welcome to the show.
Hey, brother. I want to commend you yesterday for how you handled the good old doctor who, as Ronald Reagan said, it's not a problem that our liberal friends are ignorant. It's that they know so many things that aren't so. And so he embodied that. But I called in today because I think that them taking a knee at the flag unnecessarily polarized camps. For example, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, which is no conservative icon, she called him dumb for doing it. She said that it was stupid for them to do that. So if you can get someone like her to think taking a knee at that time is dumb and stupid, you polarize the country.
Interestingly enough, Michael, Obama said the same thing last October. Before he was the presidency was over, he said the exact same thing.
Now check this out. You said that if white males were dying like black males, white people would care. And I have to challenge that a little bit because according to the statistics, more white males are killed by the cops than black males. Now what they do is they say, well, if we take the population of blacks versus whites and do a mathematical equation, we get to this 2.5 times more likely. But in the gross statistic, more whites are killed than blacks, and the cops don't go to jail when they kill whites either. There was a case in Alabama where you had a black police officer shoot and kill a naked, unarmed white guy. Never heard anything about it unless you listen to the right source to look it up. Likewise in Utah. So what I am saying is that the police, when they kill, they don't go to jail.
Well, I think that's the bigger issue. And I really do believe that is the bigger issue just in general. And you're right that if you look at some of the numbers, and like I said, the whole thing is, why isn't there any justice? Every time a police officer shoots someone, it's not justified. And, and you can look at the videos and you can look at, it's not always just that, it's justified and let them go and there's no justice being served. And I think that obviously when you get it on tape and we show that, more of these black men, again, happened in Utah, I'm aware of that. There should be justice. There should be some accountability, because I always, like I said, I always talk about, people bring up black on black crime. But Michael, when there's black on black crime, what happens to those black men that are shooting one? They're going to jail. I mean, not all of them. Don't get me wrong. Not all of them. But there's the jails show that there's plenty. We're populated with plenty of black men that have been caught committing crimes. So my point is, there is some level of accountability. They do put in the resources to go after people, and it just does not seem to be any justice on the other way around. And in fact, the police officers might resign and then end up somewhere else. And I guess that's the issue.
Okay, so you're right. When the black persons are caught, they go to jail. But in Detroit and in Chicago, you have about a 70% rate of the homicides not being solved. So in addition to us having a homicide rate that is 11 times higher than the white rate. So let's put that in the numbers. The city of Detroit had about 300 homicides last year. If the city of Detroit had the white homicide rate, that would have meant that something like 27 people would have been killed instead of 300. So when we say black-on-black crime, we're using the same mathematical equation to say the rate of homicide is so much higher. And as a conservative, libertarian, I agree with you. What we need to do is we need to change the laws that allow the police to get away with what they get away with. But when that police officer shoots somebody, he turns his gun in, he turns his badge in, there's an investigation, and whether or not...
But it's investigated by fellow police officers. I mean, that's the bigger... Again, my dad's a police officer, so I'm not going to sit here and badmouth police officers, but my dad would tell you that there was bad police work and that you could get away with stuff as a police officer. I mean, that's just the reality of it. And as a libertarian, as a conservative libertarian, Michael, would you agree that these current drug laws contribute to the violence that we have in our black communities because we're fighting over turf and drugs?
Yes,
So I mean, this
drugs should be legal.
There you go.
Drugs should be legal, but guess what? Guess who fights to keep drugs illegal? Tell Sharpton that. I said that on his show before. No, Mike, you can't have all drugs legal.
Well, yeah, I think that's the problem where you start having, and it's just, I think it's such an awkward conversation to have for some people, but yeah, you should. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, like, well, so you're saying what, heroin and cocaine? I said, well, people are going to still get it regardless, and people are killing people over it. And if you go back to the 20s and 30s, when alcohol was illegal, people were killing people over it the exact same way they're doing drugs now. And so to me, it just doesn't, there's no argument to say that it's making the streets safer and the demand's not going to go up. People are going to always want these things. And it's just like abortion. You can make it illegal. People still get abortions. There's always going to be a black market for things that people want that they can't get on the open market. And so I appreciate you calling in because, like I said, there is not, to me, it's not a clear-cut issue, but I just think that people wanted justice. I get where some folks were offended because, during the anthem. And to me, the anthem is a symbol, or the flag, these are symbols of the freedom of this country. You see what I mean? And I don't get...
Can I make one last point?
Go ahead, Michael.
Listen, you're wrong about Harbaugh, all right? He cannot manufacture a quarterback.
Oh, look, so come on. I need to hear that fight music again.
You guys won, and the bad thing is I watched it with my brother, and his son is able to play the fight song, so I had to hear it twice.
Oh, that's beautiful.
You guys won, but just think about it. You won after we turned the ball over like we were trying to remember Hugh Hefner, all right?
That's what I'm having for breakfast this morning, Michael. I'm having a turnover for breakfast this morning. That's the official snack of the Wolverines.
Yes. That's right. So, but check this out. When McCaffrey is in there, and if you guys are still doing that, then fine. He still hasn't got 100% recruiting class. I'm disappointed that O'Corn and Spade are both bums, but you can't create a quarterback. Let's see what happens when the other guy in there. I just wanted to add that to the conversation. Go Blue.
All right, Michael. Thank you. Go green, go white. All right, man. That's what I'm talking about. I knew that's what we talk. Even after a good debate on politics, let's get back to what really matters this time of year: football season. All right, we're gonna go to Tracy. Tracy's on the line.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Go green.
Go white. There we go. There we go.
I graduated from Michigan State too, so I was very happy. I have a question for you. I was listening to your earlier comments about why the NFL supports breast cancer and about breast cancer, affects a large majority of people. I guess my question to you is, doesn't it really just boil down to capitalism?
There you
For
go.
instance, I have a Kaepernick jersey,
Uh-huh.
a breast cancer pink Kaepernick jersey. And if I spend $100 for that jersey, the NFL only donates $11
Right.
to cancer research.
There you go.
So, I mean, the bottom line is that they're making money.
It's a partnership.
Now, if they could capitalize off of Black Lives Matter, they would do that too.
That's what I said too. Somebody asked me, well, don't they have a 501c3 they could partner with? I said, trust me, if they did, the NFL would already be working those commercials. Because, again, that's what the NFL is about, and they're about money, and they have a good product, so they should be able to think about generating revenue. I don't have a problem with that. It's just that I have a problem with and it's not the NFL. It's some of these guys, these fans, and these are more, like I said, these are just guys that are, to me, that are mad, and they don't like these guys speaking up about something, and they just wish they would just. A lot of the guys that are really mad are the people that don't want to have this conversation, and they feel like the conversation is being forced on them on their Sunday mornings watching football, and I get that to a certain degree, but that's to me, that's what I was making my point of. Well, you know, doesn't that sound stupid if I'm sitting there saying, well, I don't want to hear about breast cancer while I'm watching football? What does that have to do with football? Why are you forcing me to have breast cancer awareness when all I want to do is watch the game? Doesn't that sound stupid? I mean,
well, here's the thing. I just don't want people to get the idea that the NFL is being altruistic, because they're not. You know what I mean?
No, well, you're talking about when they stood.
Benefiting their bottom line.
There you go.
It really doesn't, yeah. So,
well, I mean, when I saw those owners stand up and take a knee that weekend, that was because of what the president said. It had nothing to do with Black Lives Matters or police brutality. That was, hey, President Trump slapped the NFL upside the head and called us SOBs. If nothing else, we need to show some unity around that. It wasn't about.
But here's also a thing. It was 30 years since the NFL strike too. So I thought that they were maybe trying to prevent another strike from taking place, because the ESPN 30 by 30 short has shown how they had to bring in scabs 30 years ago to take the place of some of the players who went on strike during the games. So I thought
they weren't going to do that, because this was a collective bargaining issue before. I don't think enough players believed in this cause to not play at all. Like, they would have took a knee, they might have took a fine, but not playing now. They weren't going to do that. I just think that, again, these guys, when I saw the owners take a knee, when I saw who was it, Jerry Jones and these guys, that was to protect the shield. That was to protect the NFL's brand. You know, like you said, the bottom line. And that's to me where this is at now, that people have actually forgot about the reason why they were originally taking a knee, which was police brutality and what Colin Kaepernick was bringing awareness to. And then also yesterday, I thought it was interesting that he said that he would stand, and then a couple hours later, he said that wasn't true. And his girlfriend spoke up. And I'll tell you, I'm a little concerned about the girlfriend. I think the girlfriend has a lot of influence on Colin Kaepernick. And, you know, she's the one that's brought so much awareness to him. But I would be concerned, personally, if she's the first one responding to what your plans are in the NFL and what you're going to do, take a knee or not. I think she needs to let Colin be Colin and speak up and figure out what he's going to do, because, again, it's just not a good look. You're the leader at quarterback, and that's what I want people to understand also about this with Colin Kaepernick. He's the quarterback. Right. He's the face of the franchise. He's the leader of the team. So there is a certain more onus and a responsibility and a tone that he's got to set if he's to be the leader of a team. And I think that his position made a lot of owners nervous in having him be the leader of the team. They didn't want him leading more of a revolt. I think that has a lot to do with it, too. Like, we don't need him coming on the team, getting more of these players all riled up about police brutality and things like that. So this is why he still sits. As I watch teams like Cleveland and Jacksonville who have no quarterbacks.
Right.
None. I mean, let's just be honest. Cleveland has no quarterback right now on their team. And yet and still, they still refuse to give Colin Kaepernick a chance. The Tennessee Titans picked up Brandon Weeden, a guy that's been benched on every other team, you know, he's played for, but they give him a chance over a guy that's been in the Super Bowl. This doesn't. I mean, it doesn't make sense as a football guy. That's all.
I definitely agree with the previous statements you made. I have read $40 Million Slaves by William Roden, and he talks about how they prepare athletes to be apolitical at a very early age, probably starting even at the PAL League. On how not to be involved. And even the Motown machine, to a certain extent, groomed their entertainers to be apolitical because it would affect their bottom line.
Affect the bottom line.
But on the last note, this thing about separating politics from football, to be honest with you, I only feel like, white men can do that. I don't feel that black men can necessarily accept, separate the two, because even his hair became political, for a certain extent. Whereas, white men.
They talked about his tattoos and stuff, all that before, before all of that. Right. And that's nothing new. Again, to me, that's nothing new from Allen Iverson to Rasheed Wallace. I mean, they changed the dress code in the NBA based off what Allen Iverson was doing. They demanded you wear collared shirts and no jewelry and nothing like that. So that's nothing new. But you're right, Tracy, and I want to thank you for calling in today and giving that perspective. Thanks for listening to the Wayne Bradley Show. Hope you call back again. You're now listening to the Wayne Bradley Show on 910 a.m., your super station. We'll be back right after the break.
It's the Wayne Bradley Show, conservative lyrical radio, giving you what
910 AM Superstation. When you're interested in the current events, we talk about it.
Now, one of the things that has happened in our world, sadly and tragically, is there's been another attack in London. Now, obviously, thoughts and prayers go out to the people of London who have suffered so much already. But what we have to recognize, you remember 9/11 was a massive attack, massive loss of life, massive destruction of property. And for years, terrorists were trying to do that. The concern I had earlier was, what happens if they decide to shift towards more individualistic, smaller scale attacks on a wider scale? Because speaking in terms of Homeland Security, the more complex and large a terrorist attack plan is, the easier it is to infiltrate and stop. But when you have one individual or two individuals essentially being inspired by propaganda to take and commit a terrorist act, it is much harder to stop, especially when it is diffused and dispersed throughout a country. And that's what we've been seeing.
910 AM Superstation, the voice of Detroit. 910 AM Superstation is in a league of its own. We are the only talk radio station in the Metro Detroit area sensitive to the African American community.
Make sure you join us on what station?
910 AM the Superstation.
910 AM.
910 AM. On 910 AM Superstation.
910 AM Superstation, Metro Detroit's only African American based talk radio station. Be sure to catch Doing the D with Alexander Zonchek right here on 910 AM Superstation.
And you know what that means? Lots of cool stuff. Hey, if you love gospel and jazz and Motown cruises and holiday festival concerts in Monroe, we've got it all right here for you.
I want to say thank you for all you do, all you give us. We, your fans, we just love you. And you know,
I appreciate that, Phyllis. Thank you so much. It's uncomfortable to get compliments to do something that you love doing so much, but I appreciate it.
The voice of Detroit, Sundays from 5 to 7 p.m. There's always something new to talk about, and 910 AM Superstation wants to have you covered from every angle. So we're adding some familiar voices and strong opinions to the best talk radio station in town.
I'm Republican, from Detroit, and I'm black. Yeah, that's right. Different perspective, different view. Don't miss the Wayne Bradley Show on Superstation 910 AM.
From 7 to 9 a.m., we'll have the editor for the Detroit News, Nolan Finley.
This is the most volatile time in the country in my professional career. And, that generates a lot of news, a lot of stuff to talk about.
Followed by the one and only David Alexander Bullock from 9 to 11 a.m.
The People Show, man, we bring it to you live and in full effect.
The always insightful and controversial Steve Niebling from 11 a.m. to noon.
And I do want to hear from you what you want to hear from me.
Bankalay Thompson from noon to 2 p.m.
This is the platform where we delve into the facts and informed opinion. We ask the tough questions.
The Cliff Russell Show from 2 to 4 p.m.
I don't care how much you know until I know
how much you care.
Spud from 4 to 6 p.m.
Detroit's only African-American talk station, 24/7 Spud, is here.
Rochelle Riley from 6 to 7 p.m.
I want to stress that this adventure is about life in Detroit and Michigan.
And Cliff Woodards from 7 to 9 p.m.
So this is it, y'all. We are the only talk radio station for African Americans in this market.
910 AM Superstation, the only African American talk radio station in town. If the conversation is hot and the lines are jammed, give us a try at 313-778-7600 or 313-778-7601. That's 313-778-7600 or 313-778-7601.
910 Superstation is off the chisane.
910 AM Superstation is the voice of Detroit, and we want to hear what you have to say by any means necessary.
Today's a new day, it's happening in Detroit. You're feeling okay, we're with you, Detroit. No holding back now, on the right track now. Stand up and tell them you're from Detroit. We build it better, right here in Detroit. Working together, we're making it in Detroit. It's time to shout it, no doubt about it. Stand up and tell them you're from Detroit. You've got the spirit, tell them you're from Detroit. Come on, let's hear it, tell them you're from Detroit. We're a team that's hometown, there's no town like Motown. You're at the heart of it, Seven's a part of it. Stand up and tell them you're from Detroit.
Oh yeah. Now that just gets me hyped up. I was a young lad when that song used to come on Channel 7. Gets me going in the morning. I'm trying to add some new stuff to keep folks wake you up in the morning, get you going. We've got Susan on the line here. We're gonna bring Susan in. Susan, thank you for joining the Wayne Bradley Show this morning.
Oh, good morning. I was about to hang up. Good morning. Is this Steve Hood?
No, this is not. Does this sound like Steve Hood?
Well, I'm not sure. I don't know if I sound like myself this morning. But
good morning, Susan. How are you doing?
I'm good, and you? And your name?
Wayne Bradley.
Oh, Mr. Bradley. Okay.
Yes, indeed.
I just wanted to my point is this. I've never been a supporter of sports. And I've always felt that blacks were exploited in the sports arena, entertainment, the whole shebang.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I would like to see is that the players have their own personal value in terms of what they bring to the sports arena and stand on that, because it's our players that, have built this sports thing up. So this is what I would.
Well, there's no question about that. Throughout time, African Americans have been exploited in music, in entertainment, and sports probably is not much different. The only thing I can say about sports to this point, they are a lot more well compensated for their exploitation than they were, say, 40, 50 years ago. And I would imagine
maybe in the National League, but it should go right on back to college.
You start talking about college sports. That's terrible. It's terrible.
That's where it begins. And so I'm thinking, personally, I feel that they should be compensated in college. And it goes on through the national, however that goes, because I'm not into it. I can't really speak to it. But what does concern me is that our conversation, the conversation that we have, is always seems to be dictated by what the media is talking about,
right?
Which takes us off our square. We have so many issues here in the city of Detroit to deal with this election coming up. The insurance, our schools, the recreation centers. There's so much that we need to be talking about. That this sports thing and all this hoopla around, Kaepernick and what, his stance is. And
What do you think about? I'm just curious. What do you think about this Detroit election that's coming up? What should we be paying attention to in this mayoral election and some of these city council races?
I think that we should be looking at the issues that will impact the masses of people here in the city of Detroit. And
do you think the current mayor addresses those issues?
Employment. The current mayor, no, I don't think he is addressing the needs of the city, and certainly not the people whose families have been here generation after generation, who voted for the millages and the bond issues for the infrastructure of the city.
Well, I look at the part about the millages is that we have been tricked into raising our millage rates higher than. But I mean, see, this is the problem I have with that, Susan. This is where I always question: who tells us to go ahead and support these millages? Our locally elected officials, usually the city council members or maybe in the mayor's office. But we are convinced, and this only I never thought anything about it until I moved out to Farmington Hills, where their city council members would tell people don't vote for that millage. You know, you'd have half and half. You might have a couple Republicans, a couple Democrats, whatever. And so,
the point is mainly is that when you don't give information correctly, or if your information is deceitful, then people can't make good assessment of what they should be doing.
Right.
So we have been bombarded with a lot of deceitfulness, not just in the politics, in the education. We go on, religion, the whole shebang.
Right.
We have not been given good information. And so consequently, you know, people don't believe the truth. They believe the fantasy. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. And I would hope that we would have more control of the conversations that we have with one another and not be dictated by what the status quo is on.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you calling in this morning, and thank you for calling in and listening to the Wayne Bradley Show this morning. Hope you continue to listen in.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. So, I mean, to me, she has some very valid points in talking about exploitation of athletes, and that definitely, to me, from the NCAA standpoint, is almost embarrassing now at this point that you'll have guys that play in college sports that are generating millions of dollars. And they sometimes don't have money to buy a pizza on the weekends, or they want to buy some clothes or, you know, do some things. And then we get mad at them when they might sell a pair of their cleats for $1,000 or something like that, which if you gave them a stipend or something that was relative to the value of what they bring to that school, maybe they wouldn't have to do that. I find it almost sickening that, you know, some of these coaches, Harbaugh, Nick Saban, and they're great coaches. They're making anywhere between $7 to $9 million a year. They're usually the highest paid public university people in their states, usually, you know, the football coaches. Think about that. And they're in charge of managing and developing all these young men, and they're being paid $7 to $9 million. That's a lot of compensation. But the players don't receive anything. They do receive possibly, if they stay for 4 years, they get an education, which has value, no question about it. But I think that some of these players, and in particular, when you look at basketball, football is a little harder because there's more players, and you'd have to spread it out. But even still, football generates such a large amount of money for universities that there should be some sort of way that you can stipend out or reward some college ball players. I know that, you know, ruffles people's feathers sometimes, but you get mad when they take a little money from a booster or an agent and then they wreck the whole season, mess up your whole program. Wouldn't it just been a little simpler just to compensate them from the beginning? But that's just a thought, and I appreciate Susan for calling in. So this week we're going to get back to tax reform. In D.C., I would suspect that we're going to get back to tax reform. There was also last night, President Trump released his plans on DACA and some of the negotiations that they want in terms of if they're willing to allow the DACA kids and the people to stay, that they want some certain conditions, and that will include, believe it or not, there's going to be less legal immigration, and also spending more money on. I mean, basically, he took some President Trump took some hardline policies for the price of DACA, and and some of it, again, I think that these are the things that he said. These are things he ran on. He's been consistent on. And I do believe that we need to have a stronger immigration system, a more transparent system, and we need to focus on that. And I think that sometimes with all the things that are going on right now, the tweets and things like that, we kind of lose sight of the fact that the economy is roaring back, job numbers are getting better, and he's doing that job, but it just sometimes it does not come across that way because of the tweets and with how the media covers things. But his list of demands included overhauling the country's green card system, a crackdown on unaccompanied minors entering the country, and building his promised wall along the southern border. Now, I think that as usual, President Trump, he's a negotiator. He probably knows he won't get all the things out that deal, but he's willing to come to the table with a full line of demands because he knows that one of the Democrats are going to fight to keep those 800,000 people in. And I think we should, to a certain degree. If you haven't got any trouble, if you've been a productive member of society and you've been here all your life and your parents brought you here, you should not be punished for something your parents did that even though it was illegal, they were trying to get you to a better place. And these people are productive members of society. They're bringing added value to America. Some of these people are serving in our military. So, I mean, there's no way you can question the fact that most of these dreamers and the folks that they're talking about are productive members of society, and they have added value in our community. So it'll be interesting to see how that works with the Democrats. President Trump also said that he called Chuck, as he refers to him. He called Chuck to see if they wanted to do a deal on health care. Now, I keep telling folks he is way more comfortable with his friend, Chuck Schumer, than he is with some of these Republican senators. He spent all day Sunday arguing with Bob Corker, who made some pretty revealing statements. And right now it's not, to me, it just, if I was president, if I was even working with him, I would say, hey, man, let's focus on these agenda items and not attack people like Corker, who we need to take care of appointments, your ambassadorships, all these different things. He's in charge of that. It really doesn't do us, there's no added value of attacking Senator Corker. Now, maybe there's some added value going after him behind the scenes, talking to him, letting him know that there are issues that you have with him. But I don't think that the Twitter and the, going back and forth in public is a good look for Republicans. And then some of the things he said in that article about being concerned that he could, make a World War III, but he's more concerned about President Trump doing that than he is about Kim Jong-il. And so I think some of these guys, and we just had to be honest, as even Republicans, there's some Republicans that were never going to be comfortable with Donald Trump. But I think that they ought to be working to make sure he has a successful agenda. And again, I'm a good old fashioned Jack Kemp style Republican. I don't sit around and bash my fellow Republicans. Period. I don't care if there are things we disagree on, and I don't agree with every single thing that the president said. But I don't make it a personal against him. And I think that you can intelligently debate whether it's issues in the community, whether it's policy-related issues. I think that you can do that, challenge it to be greater. I mean, that's how I look at it. I look at Donald Trump. He's a negotiator, so he's always looking for the best deal. So I don't have a problem with saying this could be done differently. I think he's the kind of person that can appreciate suggestions, but he won't tolerate disrespect. And those are two different things. You can give him suggestions. You can say you did this wrong, you did that, or you don't agree with this, but he's not tolerating the disrespect. And I think that that's something we're not used to with our presidents. I think a lot of times our presidents have been more humble about the criticism and just kind of, President Trump is not like that. He's a fighter. He's going to fight you on everything. He does not concede points that he doesn't agree with just for the sake of doing it. And I think that it's taken some getting used to for some people out here. So We might as well get used to it, folks. You got another 3 years, possibly another 8 years of President Trump. And the Washington Post predicted that he's doing if he continues the way he's going to get reelected. Because one, Democrats aren't coming with any solutions. They're not coming offering anything of any substance. They're just basically saying same thing they said in 2016. We're not Trump. If you don't want, don't support the Republicans because they're the party of Trump. Well, guess what? The people are still with Trump. There are some, I would say there are people that are falling back. Maybe they're a little less enthusiastic. But overall, Donald Trump hasn't lost too much of the support of his base. And as long as they're invigorated, and as long as he can go do a speech in Alabama or something like that and get them all riled up anyway, they're going to come out and support him. And we have to accept that. As a Republican, I don't mind that. I just want to see the policy getting done. To me, that's theatrics. It's almost like wrestling. I don't even pay attention to that anymore. And I wish more people would just not focus on what he says, but what he does in terms of putting America first, his agenda, in terms of tax reform. So I'm going to bring Reggie on the line. Reggie, thanks for calling in, brother.
Hey, good morning, Wayne.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm good. Good to hear your show.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, look, the question that you had earlier, and I kind of support the previous caller. Yes, in Detroit, we have been exploited by so-called leaders.
Mm-hmm.
When
that goes back generations. It's not. I'm not pointing out any one person either. Let's be clear about that.
I understand.
Right.
I understand. And what I tell people, the reason Detroit is in the condition that it is because people do not research, they don't read, and
go by name ID. Vote on a name. They go on a name that they know. Whether it's Martha Reeves, to name one where just the name pops in your head and you're gonna go vote for. And I never forget what they said. Like, what do you plan on doing if you win city council? She said, I'm gonna have them dancing in the street, which was a play off of one of her songs. And I'm like, how is that helpful for the city of Detroit?
Well, you look at Wendell Anthony, Charlie Beckham. With Dave Bing. When they were pushing for Dave Bing to become mayor, both of them was going around telling the folk in Detroit, hey, he should vote for him for mayor because he was a basketball champion. Okay? and when you look at the word, here's a perfect example also. I tell people to Google redlining.
Right.
Okay? And when you do redlining Wikipedia, you will see where the banks and lending financial institutions told the black clergy all across America and like say Detroit, to preach a wealth doctrine, okay,
right.
This prosperity, okay, and every one of your members that will come to our institutions and get a mortgage, we will give the church a kickback. It's right there. Again, people should look up the word redlining.
Right.
You wonder why you got all these liquor stores in Detroit. In their redlining definition, there's something called liquor lining, and it explains why you have all these liquor stores in predominantly black communities. They're not in the white communities, as we know.
Right.
And so that's why I say people should read. And like I say, how is it that you have the president of the NAACP supporting a mayor that's advocating redlining? And redlining is illegal. And the president of the NAACP is supporting this mayor. And 25 years ago, this president, Wendell Anthony, was fighting redlining. Butch Halliwell was fighting redlining. So it is true, and I agree with you. We've been exploited. And again, our problem is we don't read.
Well, the interesting thing is a lot of these folks work for the mayor now. Charlie
exactly.
B., Butch Holly, all these guys have either currently work in his administration, consult with his administration. I made the joke the other day. I said any considerable black candidate that considered running against Duggan, he's already employed them. They're not going to, any of the most serious threats to his candidacy, they work for him at this point. And I think that he's a smart guy for that.
Oh, yeah, he's a shrewd politician, and everybody know it. And here's the thing, too. White people have studied black people for a long time, especially in Detroit, and they know who have the ability to galvanize the people, to more or less brainwash the people, convince them to follow and go down the wrong path, if you will.
Right.
And redlining is just a perfect example. I mean, like I say, when you look up redlining and you see that it's illegal, and you got the ministers, and see, that's the problem in Detroit. It's the ministers that is the major problem in the black community in Detroit.
Oh boy!
I mean, you got bishops running around talking about the mayor should not talk about poverty. How in the hell you gonna not talk about poverty as a mayor in a city that's 85% black, and you got combined poverty and concentrated poverty and child poverty at 86%?
Now, this is the question I would have for that, Reggie. What is what would the mayor? What will be his solution for poverty as opposed to job creation? Because, I mean, it's only so much, to me, government has only such a limited role in raising people out of poverty. That's just my personal perspective on it. What should the mayor have done? Because he didn't show up for the poverty forum, which I'll be honest, I thought he was walking right into a trap there. Politically speaking, I'm not saying that he shouldn't be concerned about it. But what would have been a satisfactory statement or solution for you, Reggie, in terms of how the mayor should be talking about poverty here in the city of Detroit?
Well, again, I think that the mayor should have shown up. He always know how to leave. It's just like Snyder. When Snyder came visiting Detroit several years ago, it kind of got out of hand, and he left. Okay, right. And that's all the mayor had to do. But when you're a mayor, and again, when you have 86% combined poverty in your city, you have high unemployment, the highest in the country. Your crime is as high as it is. You're number one with crime in the nation, and you don't want to come before the people.
Well, I think I put in perspective. Bankley, who's also a host here on 910 AM. He was one of the moderators, and he's been extremely critical of Duggan. So maybe he didn't think he was going to get a fair shake, letting him be the moderator. I don't know what the scenario is, but I just and I heard Bankley talked about that scenario a lot, where the mayor's office was pressuring them to not do it and all this other stuff. So I don't know. It just seems to me that he's handled tough crowds before. He's an experienced politician. Maybe he thought it was no gain and a lot to risk by showing up at that event. What do you think that's possibly it, Reggie?
Well, I've been around Detroit a long time. I've been in this political game for over 30 years. And whenever a mayor or any elected official don't want to talk to the people, in other words, Duggan is disconnected from the people. Okay, it's a huge disconnect in Detroit. With the mayor, and he has successfully disconnected the council from the people. But there's a lot that a mayor can do to address poverty. Number one, you can use best practice that's used by U.S. mayors across the country. All you got to do is consult the U.S. Council of Mayors. Okay. There's believe it or not, when you look up poverty, it tells you. You sit down and talk with the major employers. You talk with the.
I think he's doing that. Don't you think he's? I think.
Wait a minute. Let me finish. Let me finish.
You gotta hurry up. Though. We gotta go to a break real quick here. But go ahead, Reggie.
Okay. You use as far as training. You collaborate with the higher education institutions. You put vocational programs in your schools. and you can use the template that President Obama used, and that was poverty, the roadway to poverty, roadway out of poverty. Perfect program. Is successful on the West Coast. Why would it not work in Detroit?
Right.
So there's all type of examples that can be used, and there's several cities across the country that have extreme low poverty, and it's because they were progressive, and that's what he should be doing.
Okay.
That's how he should address it. So, hey, man, thanks for taking my call. Keep up the good work, and we'll be talking.
Thanks a lot, Reggie, for calling in. I appreciate it. All right, you have a good rest of the good day. All right, so you listening to we're about to go to a break here on the Wayne Bradley Show on 9:10 a.m. your Superstation. We'll be back after the break.
It's the Wayne Bradley Show, conservative political radio, giving you what you need to know. Listen up, it's the Wayne Bradley Show. It's the Wayne Bradley Show, conservative political radio, giving you what you need to know. Listen up.
Great news. 910 AM Superstation is growing, and you can watch as well as listen anywhere you go. The 910 AM Superstation app is now supported on iPhone, iPad, Android phone, Android tablet, Amazon Kindle Fire, Windows Phone, Apple TV, and Roku. 910 AM Superstation, the voice of Detroit.
Mom knows that every mom needs a little rehab.
That's fun to say.
All this week, you can win a Napa trip for you and your 3 besties. Relax at the Meritage Resort, indulge at Spa Terra, and get $1,000 spending money.
I knew you were looking out for me.
You'll also be entered to win $500 daily. Watch for the Mom Word of the Day. Text it to 34490 or go to momweekdays.com to enter.
You shave your legs? I'm not an animal.
It's the Every Mom Needs a Little Rehab sweepstakes.
Mom at 7 p.m. on WADL Detroit. We're the hottest station in town. Whatever you need, it's right here on 910 AM Superstation. The most powerful voices in the urban community. 910 AM Superstation gives you the flip side, the real side. This is our side.
3, 2, 1.
You're listening to 910 AM Superstation, Detroit's only urban talk radio station. We're listening to 910 AM Superstation, Detroit's only urban talk radio station.
Hello, Detroit. You've won my heart. Your renaissance and waterfronts give you a flair of your own. Irresistible you. Hug and kissable you. You're alive with so much feeling, and I will always be there for you. I will say a little prayer for you, and I will always care for you.
Hello, Detroit. Good morning, everybody. You're on the 6 o'clock hour here at the Wayne Bradley Show on 910 AM, your Superstation. Trying to figure out the great mix of keeping you guys awake with some good music. I got some other stuff I'm going to hit you with a little bit later, but it's been a good hour so far. Folks are calling in, having a lot to talk about. We talked earlier about the police brutality issues. We've talked a little bit about obviously about the how this is involved in football. We're moving past that. We were talking some local politics, and we've got about a month left until the election. It's not much of a race between Coleman Young II and Mike Duggan. I don't even, like I said, it's almost not worth talking too much about. I would love to see those numbers are right now. And it's no disrespect to Coleman Young. He's a good guy. He just is not ready for the big seat yet. I think if he would have ran for city council, his name ID would have put him in a good position. And I'm sure down the road he's going to use that name in other races across, maybe the city or the state. I don't know what his plans are, but he is not doing, the numbers don't bode well for him right now. He's going to continue, I'm sure, working and knocking the grassroots. Matter of fact, his office is not that far from mine. 3 doors down from my barbershop. So I actually see him and his folks out there working pretty often. So it just doesn't have what I consider the resume for leadership in the city of Detroit right now. We're in a critical stage right now of trying to, come back. I think that, the mayor's office has done a good job working with what was given to them by my governor, the Republican Party, Rick Snyder. He cleaned the slate. He plowed, he swept the street, cleaned it up, gave it back. Now, Duggan, what he's done is he's done a good job. He's instilled confidence in other business leaders and people to come back here to do business in Detroit. You got to give a lot of credit also on that to Dan Gilbert, who's pretty much put together a blueprint for how Detroit should be done. And I think that the one thing I admire most about Dan Gilbert is that he has shown that the private sector, now let's not get it misunderstood, he does know how to wrestle up some tax dollars and benefits to work with his buildings, but essentially it's been someone from the private sector that's helped turn around downtown Detroit. It wasn't any government entity that did it. It was private equity, private investing, and Dan Gilbert has done a big part of that. So the question I have is that would big business be comfortable with Coleman Young right now? I don't see why. He's never dealt with big budgets. He's never shown that that's a big portion of what he's about. I mean, all I've heard him talk about is the disparity between downtown and the rest of the city, which that's almost been a lifelong debate. I mean, I can't remember a time, and that goes back to when his father was the mayor, that there was not a large disparity between the way folks lived in downtown Detroit compared to, Brightmoor, the East Side, whatever you want to call it, the neighborhoods. And I don't see how you change that without more economic strength and more jobs and things like that. Now, there is an interesting development that Stephen Ross, I believe, and Dan Gilbert are going to work on together to actually improve communities and invest in communities, which I think, to me, that's where you're going to really get Detroit to turn around, because there's going to be some well-to-do people that move in, and they'll move into North Rosedale, and they'll move into the university districts and all that. But until you have sustainable neighborhoods with affordable housing for the people that are already here, and affordable housing also includes these ridiculous tax millage rates that have made it unaffordable for someone who might not even have a mortgage on their house in Detroit. But if you're paying $300 to $400 a month in taxes, another $700 to $800, whoever knows how much it could be in insurance, it still is unaffordable. And I thought it was interesting that the one caller talked about redlining, and they're having a lot of negotiations right now. And I'm going to try to bring in a couple of different people from the state reps to talk about it. I definitely want to bring in Tom Leonard, who is leading the charge on trying to make insurance rates more affordable. And then you have people like Sherry Gay DeNogo, who I consider a friend, who's brought up another issue of they shouldn't pull your credit in terms of being one of the qualifying factors, because a lot of people in these communities are already economically challenged and their credit might reflect so. And that just, again, is a way to keep the rates high for people who can't afford the insurance. So I think that's a valid counterpoint, or at least a valuable suggestion to take into account, because there are ways they could figure out ways to reduce those rates if they change some of their grading or how they looked at certain things. If a person has a bunch of health care bills that they got stuck with, that doesn't mean that their ability to pay, and that they don't pay the things that are their monthly bills. And I think that that's something that might be a good idea. But, I mean, you could understand with anybody that's making financial commitments and that you're to pay something every month, they might want to know what's your payment history and your ability to pay, and that might help paint part of that picture. But it's going to be an interesting debate because I find it not funny because it was always an issue, but car insurance in Detroit has been a problem since I've been driving. And it's not until we get, a little more gentrification, folks are moving, back into the city of Detroit, and they're like, whoa, these insurance rates are ridiculous. When I was in Livonia, it was $300 a month. Now it's $600 a month because I live downtown. Or, and people don't, and that's another problem we're having is that a lot of these folks that are moving into Detroit aren't changing their address. They're not bringing their car insurance to Detroit, so they're, Duggan and folks like that are losing potential voters and taxpayers in the city because they don't want the car insurance rates, which I think if you really look at that, that's ridiculous. And the way they're talking about bringing down the cost of insurance is by reducing the caps. Now, I think Michigan is probably one of the only states that is unlimited, and that affects the rate of our insurance more than probably anything else, because even in the UP or wherever, people are here in Michigan are paying more because there are no caps. And now you're going to have people that are going to be against putting caps on it because maybe they've been in a car accident. Maybe they've been the person that was injured and knows that if there had been a certain amount of caps, that their level of care or the quality of their care could have been drastically different. But I think what you're looking at here is a quality of life for a lot of Michigan drivers. In Detroit in particular, a lot of the people cannot afford the insurance, so they drive around with no insurance. And so the question is, you have to ask yourself, is a policy with a minimum of, say, a $250,000 cap, is that better than driving around with no insurance at all? I think that, to me, that is probably a better solution than people riding around with no insurance because, again, the city of Detroit and the residents there are the ones that lose when these guys hit someone with no insurance or, these kind of things. And it does not help the city of Detroit and its residents. So it's going to be interesting to see how Tom Leonard and Mike Duggan, Lana Thies, and all, they're all working together to get this done. These are Republicans and Democrats working together for the greater good, trying to get some things done. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. And like I said, I hope to bring in Tom Leonard soon. It's interesting. I guess I'm looking through some of my news here today and things that are interesting. And I'm going to try to get James Tate in here, who's running against a community activist who gained fame last year with a social media broadcast that helped nab a carjacking suspect. And like I said, to me, I don't have a problem with grassroots activism and people that are getting involved. It's a matter of can they accomplish something once they're in a position. And I want to hear from the folks today. It's been kind of quiet here in the last few minutes. 313-209-9000. That calling number again is 313-209-9000. I want to hear some people's predictions for this mayor's race coming up. Is it close, or am I imagining that? I don't think it's very close. I haven't, I know that the people that like Coleman Young are extremely passionate, so it can come off that way that this is a close fight because those people are a lot more passionate than some of your average Duggan supporters that are just it's business. He's a better decision. He's a better choice, point blank, period, and they're just rolling with their guy. But when I hear old folks that are supporting Coleman Young, it's almost like they think they're supporting his father again, I'm sure that he does not mind that, but he's not his father, and I think that is where his biggest issue is, that he's kind of just ran off of being Coleman Young's son, and to a lot of Detroiters, that still means something. Don't get me wrong, but he had to have a good plan, and I just don't. I don't see that right now. So it's going to be interesting watching what happens in Detroit with these elections. I think that if Duggan wins, he continues to build upon what he's been doing. And Detroit is going to become, again, a bigger – I think he's going to get the growth that he wants. But I think that there are some serious issues that need to be addressed in the in the community. I'd like to see more done with, pushing more kids into trade academies and teaching young people these building skills so they can come back and fix up some of these properties in their own neighborhoods so they can own them, have a stake in them, show these young men how to work together to fix homes so they can take pride in that and rebuild their own communities. And we don't have to expect other folks to come in, whether it's through investment or gentrification, to fix up the city of Detroit. Because guess what, folks? When that happens, it's not the same. And I don't have a problem with gentrification. I've been telling folks for the last couple of years, Detroit's going to end up being like Chicago. You're going to have your extremely nice parts of Chicago, like Chicago. You have extremely nice parts. And then you're going to have some really rough parts that no one wants to go into and deal with. And I think that that's going to be the challenges for Mike Duggan, is making sure there's opportunities and things in those neighborhoods. As long as Dan Gilbert's here, as long as Penske and all these guys are here, business is going to continue to pick up in Detroit because land, let's just be honest, land and rent are cheaper here than they are in New York, San Francisco, Houston. I mean, we probably have some of the most reasonable rents and rates in the country. And we have the infrastructure. We have highway access. We have the space to accommodate a lot of different businesses. And it'll be interesting to see how this Amazon proposal goes, because the only thing Detroit doesn't have, and I don't know if I'll see it in my lifetime, but I guess we're getting close to it now with the Q line, is we don't have any mass transit. And I think that's an issue that, being a Detroiter, I'm used to having a car. I'm used to being able to drive everywhere I go, park in the parking lot, leave when I want. And it's a lifestyle decision when you become a mass transit user. If you live in places like Chicago, or if you live in, like, D.C. is a great example, or New York, a lot of people don't have cars. A lot of people park their cars because you got to pay for parking, you got to pay for, parking fees. So a lot of people just don't even have a car on some of these on the East Coast. But this is the Midwest, and this is the Motown. This is where we build the cars. And I think that's always been the biggest impediment, has been that the big three is like, this is the motor city. We drive cars here. We don't take mass transit. Now, maybe if there's a way the big three could start manufacturing the mass transit trains and all the different ways that they could somehow profit from it, or at least be included in the process, I think that we would get a little further. But I just think that we're kind of an old school state, and that's going to be a challenge, is saying that we have the mass transit plan. I think that the Q line, for all its intents and purposes, is just a shuttle for Quicken employees. No one outside of them, it takes 30 minutes to get a 10-minute ride. From the Boulevard and Woodward downtown, it's about 30 to 40 minutes, depending on the traffic and depending on how many people are on the Q line and stopping and different things like that. So for someone like myself, I don't really have another 30, 40 minutes to waste on that. And so, it's an interesting thing with mass transit in Michigan, because we are so indebted to and, essentially, lobbied hardest by the big three. That's why Tesla couldn't come to Michigan right now, is because of the big three. So we'll see what happens with that. I think that that's going to be an interesting debate. I think that if you really look at the workforce, and then we start talking about partnering with Windsor, Detroit is what I would consider a premier destination for a lot of businesses, but we'll see how that works in terms of Amazon. But I tell you, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, definitely 10 years ago, but we wouldn't have been even in a discussion for Amazon. There would have been no talk of them coming to Detroit. And, and Dan Gilbert was building up his, what I call, Gilbertsville. He was building it up. He had a vision, and he's slowly building that vision, and it's coming to fruition. I mean, he's very close to swinging this jail deal, where they're going to move the jail to the other side. So when you enter Gilbertville, downtown Detroit, you will not be greeted by a jail, which I understand. There's no better way of you could just see like the media, especially out of town media when they come in and do tourists, talk about how great Detroit is. They pull up off the freeway and the first thing they see is this big brand new jail. And so I understand Dan Gilbert's thinking about that and the fact that you could build a soccer stadium there. Now this again points to where Detroit is going, an international city. Soccer, there's a large, the Arab and Chaldean communities are very heavy into soccer. We have Latino communities. Black folks are getting into soccer now, and so you're bringing that to the city. I mean, you're trying to make Detroit a first-class destination, and Dan Gilbert and Tom Gores, another two MSU Spartans, may I point out, two more fellow MSU Spartans, are leading the effort to rebuild that area in downtown Detroit. And I think that, again, when you see what's happening, these are private investment. Now, to be clear, these guys are definitely getting a little bit of the corporate welfare gravy train with tax credits and things like that, but you have to spend your own money first. And so I'm willing to reimburse someone that's willing to invest in this city because for a long time people were not willing to do that. Now, is it a generous package? The Gilbert bills are pretty generous. Definitely giving him the motivation that he needs to continue investing in downtown Detroit and Gilbertsville. I'd love to have him on here one day. I've met him at the State of the Union earlier this year in January, and it was interesting talking to him. He's a hardworking man, and he has a vision, and I think that it's good to see that the pioneers, I mean, he is our modern day, from the Ford era. I mean, he's our modern day guy that's rebuilding Detroit with a national business that continues to grow. And it's more than just a mortgage company, it's technology. And if he brings a Major League Soccer team here, more power to Dan Gilbert, and keep building Detroit up. Just don't forget about the little guys. And to me, as long as he's creating business, he's giving opportunity to hire. If he's building these buildings, those opportunities for construction jobs, trade jobs, and then of course, if we can get our young folks into these math and sciences and computers, you're preparing them for the jobs of the future. And I think to me, that's something Dan Gilbert speaks on more than I would expect from Mike Duggan, because Mike Duggan he's not creating the jobs. Dan Gilbert understands what the future of what the job market looks like more. And those are the people I come to, or who I expect to hear more about job creation and fighting poverty, because they have the tools. They've actually done something about it. And government seldomly actually does what it's accomplished to do, folks. I mean, I hate to break that news to you, but if you're expecting the government to help you, you're going to probably end up being disappointed. When the government shows up your door and says they're here to help, that's when you should really be concerned, because that's not the job of government, and they don't do a good job of it in the first place. We've been battling the war on poverty now for how long? We've been doing the war on drugs now for how long? And this goes across, party lines. These are Republicans, Democrats. At the end of the day, no one party, no one person can control the beast of big government. And it's been growing out of control for a long time. So I don't come to Mike Duggan to give me the solution for poverty. Talk to Dan Gilbert. Dan Gilbert's got those solutions. Stephen Ross does. Peter Carmenos does. But Mike Duggan, all he can do is manage it and make sure that he sets the table for a positive environment for the job creators to come in here and do what they need to do. That's what Mike Duggan does. Mike Duggan could push for lowering those millages, or he could put, or whatever he's doing in terms, for me, those are the things that they've been coming out reevaluating the property. So they're getting lower valuations and those numbers are going down. But I think there's more that can be done about that. And I think there's more ways you can handle it. I think we got a caller finally chiming in here. And so we're going to get to them soon here. But I think that those are some of the issues that private industry focus on as opposed to my elected officials. What do you think about that? Who should have the answers? Should it be Mayor Mike Duggan or should it be guys like Dan Gilbert? I'm going to always go with the private sector, and that's just where I stand on. We're going to bring Al on the line. Al, thanks for calling in.
Oh, what's going on today, Wayne? Hey, you're making a good point. I think sometimes you're right to a certain degree. Just look in terms of Michigan. Mm-hmm. You had a governor who was who looks to be a failed looks to be a failed politician, Mr. Snyder. Mm-hmm. He took over all these different municipalities, and has he made them any better? Now we're relying on other companies to come in here and provide jobs, but the bad part about it is with the school systems being destroyed and with its emergency manager enacted in some of these minority cities throughout Michigan, has it been a benefit? Some people gonna gain from Dan Gilbert and all these other business owners coming into the city of Detroit, but will the people of the city of Detroit benefit from it?
Well, I think that's the challenge
right now.
Yeah, I do think that's the challenge.
Well, the challenge is he's going out and recruiting people to come to Michigan. He's not using the people that are already here in the city of Detroit to work in a lot of these in the mortgage industry. And I also wanted to say, think in terms of how he with Rock Financial with all these subprime mortgage loans, where a lot of people lost their houses. I hear what you're saying that he will create jobs, but he's part of the problem. Why we got all these empty houses in the city of Detroit? Am I right?
If a lot of lenders did that, and I'll just say this with him. No, I just wanted to say this. I was a mortgage loan officer back in those days, and I can tell you just from the experience, he tried to stay away from that more than a lot of these other. That's why he's still in business. So yeah, I'm sure he did a book of business in Detroit, but that was not his focus. That was not his energy because he knew. You could look at the numbers and say, yeah, of course he did some loans in Detroit because if he didn't do any, that would have been a problem. So I think that a lot of his focus was more on A paper than it was alternative credit. And I think that's why he survived. I think that's why Quicken made it through that period of time. That's why he's like the second biggest lender now because he did not do.
Him and Rock Financial was together. So I know he's changed his name now, but Rock Financial and him, I know it was two different guys, but he was a part of that group.
Well, yeah, that was a brokerage.
Nice cut both ways.
Yeah, that was more of a brokerage shop, which again, in the concept of what they did was they just shopped every loan to a million different people. And it's just different from what he's doing Quicken, which is kind of like lending with their own money and being more financially sound with the people they're lending to. So I'm not going to make any excuses for that other than to say that that wasn't a large book of his business. If it was, he probably wouldn't be in business right now. But predatory lending was definitely a problem.
Man, it was a horrible problem. And I know a lot of people like to always say, I know that, like you say, the government. And my thing is, I'm like this. I'm listening to a lot of people. I'm not trying to get off subject with you, Wayne.
Go ahead.
I'm listening to what people talk about in terms of the flag. I'm listening to what people talking in terms of police violence. I'm listening in terms of a lot of people being critical of minorities. But the thing that I want to keep raising this question is, how many people who are not minorities know the contribution of people of African American descent when it comes to this country? We got an incident over here at the fire department in the city of Detroit where a gentleman brought watermelons and laid them on the counter. How many white people understand Jim Crow South and understand the racial overtones of watermelons?
I don't think he did. I'm gonna give him a break on that because he was 40 years old. He's probably ignorant to that.
Listen, I'm gonna tell you something. I'm 40 years old, Wayne. I know my history.
I do, but it's our history.
I know my history because my history is American history. And the reason why I'm bringing this to you, Wayne, is how many Caucasian people or people who are not of African American descent know the contributions of Africans when it comes to this country. When we think about Benjamin Banneker, who helped design the plans for Washington, D.C., how many white people know who Benjamin Banneker is?
Right.
How many white people know who is Garrett Morgan, the gentleman who introduced the flash? I mean, not the flashlight, but the turns, the light signals for the vehicle that's on the road, and who created the gas mask that was used in World War II against who? Hitler, where a lot of these clowns want to run around with swastikas on.
Right.
See, I'm coming to the point right here, Wayne, and I'm respect whatever you. I'm respect that you're a conservative. I don't treat you any different. You have the right to believe, but I'm to the point now, Wayne. I'm tired of people telling we need to be you know what people want us to be? Subservient.
Right.
That's basically what they want African American people to be. I'm glad you're an independent thinker and you won't allow them to do you.
Well, and that's what's even funnier is that they took a knee. They took a knee, Al. That's the, even drives me more crazy.
Taking a knee now.
Yeah, that's not even good enough. No, I'm just saying, even in that one scenario, they took a knee, being subservient, and they still mad. So
But see, that's the reason why. That's the reason why I question. That's the reason why I'm putting that question out. How many people, and this is not about race, but how many people know the contributions of African Americans when it comes to this country and know what we have? Listen, I'm gonna tell you this before I get off, Wayne.
Go ahead, brother.
If African American people, if they want us to leave, you know what African American people should do? They should take every invention that we created in this country and we should pull it out, and you tell me where this country would stand then.
Amen,
if
brother.
We took every invention, how much would this country stand in terms of what it really is? That's the point I'm at now. I'm not even at a point to even keep on talking to people who don't understand my history because it's their history too, because it's American history. I'm to the point now, you know what? Any invention that African American people have made in this country, we need to pull it out and we'll see where this country really stand at. And then maybe people will appreciate the contributions of African American people for this country. And then they'll start to realize that you got to stop playing these games.
Okay.
And I'll leave it at that, Wayne.
Thank you, Brother Al. Appreciate you calling in. As usual, it's always an insightful conversation with my brother Al. Hey, listen, we're about to go to our break here. You're listening to the Wayne Bradley Show on 910 AM, your superstation.
It's the Wayne Bradley Show. Conservative Analytical Radio. Giving you what you need to know. Listen up, it's the Wayne Bradley Show. It's the Wayne Bradley Show. Conservative Analytical Radio. Giving you what you need to know. Listen up, it's the Wayne Bradley Show. That's what it is.
When you think of the voices of Detroit, there's only one station that comes to mind. 910 AM Superstation. We're the voice of reason. The voice of comedy. The voice of opinion. And the voice of facts.
So is that how it is the community then has so much input and say in terms of what goes there? Because I would think at the point where they get to the point where they're asking for TIF money or brownfield money, there's a process there, and they'll have to go and plead their case. Is it 74? Is it their intent to give you guys input as a requirement? They're going to need your permission if you're a landowner in that area, or is it just advisory?
In the end, it is advisory, but the law allows for the public to speak.
One piece, of course, was the referendum on community benefits.
We're bringing you 50,000 watts of attitudes and opinions. We are 910 AM Superstation, the voice of Detroit. Great news. 910 AM Superstation is growing, and you can watch as well as listen anywhere you go. The 910 AM Superstation app is now supported on iPhone, iPad, Android phone, Android tablet, Amazon Kindle Fire, Windows Phone, Apple TV, and Roku. 910 AM Superstation, the voice of Detroit.
Good news! This cancer clinic got 4.5 stars on Yelp.
On the next month,
Marjorie's breast cancer scare.
You thought about new ones? My rack is fine. Oh, please, you could tuck those puppies into your belt.
As Bonnie acting like a boob.
I don't want anyone feeling sorry for me because I'm sick.
No one's gonna feel sorry for you because you're sick.
Yeah, I'll be sorry for you because you're a crazy old cat lady.
Ex-mom.
Tonight at 7 p.m. on WADL Detroit. 910 AM Superstation. We're bigger and better than ever and growing daily.
I'm Dr. Taylor. This is my inaugural show. Just a few things about me. I'm happy to be here to be part of the Superstation team. This program, we want to talk about addiction, which is a really broad subject. It covers a whole lot of things. I ask you to call in if you want to talk to me on the air about anything. We have online Sandra.
You have been my mentor for years. I look up to you. So, and I talk about you all the time to people. I think that what you've done proved to other people that they can do whatever they want to do with their life. And that's helped me get back up to it because I was an alcoholic at one time. And I've been sober for 12 years on September 15th.
910 AM is the gold standard for talk radio. 910 AM Superstation, the best, the brightest, and the bravest voices of Detroit. Don't believe me? Just listen.
Like every time I even consider dating someone, that god-awful, I can't trust anybody, feeling is there. How do you ever overcome trust?
You can absolutely overcome trust when you really deal with the issues that caused you to be there. That's why I say to you all the time, I am so proud of you and all the things that you're doing, but you need to sit and be counseled. Period. Because there's some things that you need to heal from. There's some things that you need to really dive into. There's some places that need some addressing. And you're not going to do them on your own.
910 AM Superstation, giving you exactly what you need.
It's the Wayne Bradley Show. Conservative Lyrical Radio. Giving you what you need to know. Listen up. It's the Wayne Bradley Show. It's the Wayne Bradley Show. Conservative Lyrical Radio. Giving you what you need to know. Listen up. It's the Wayne Bradley Show.
And welcome back to the Wayne Bradley Show, live on 10 a.m., your Superstation. Want to appreciate everybody that's listening in today. Appreciate everyone that's calling in. I don't say it too often, but if you do get a chance, if you're on Twitter, follow me at Conservative Bro. And you can get all the podcasts of all the shows as well at conservativebro.com. So I want to talk about another issue today that I find it's very sad, very sick, but I don't hear any of the Democrats speaking up on this. Harvey Weinstein, the Weinstein Company fired its co-founder, Harvey Weinstein, on Sunday after a New York Times investigation uncovered allegations that he engaged in rampant sexual harassment. And this guy has been paying off women for decades based on his sexual harassment. I won't speak on the radio of some of the things he's actually been accused of doing, but it's pretty disgusting stuff. And this guy was one of Hillary Clinton's biggest supporters. Remember Hillary dogged out Donald Trump about what kind of person he was and how he treated women? This is one of her biggest supporters. Now, again, she was married to Bill Clinton, so, I mean, she was already kind of in a weak position to be criticizing men with bad behavior. But this is even more serious because, again, this guy, he's actually funded stuff against women's abuse and all, because he's a liberal. You know, this is what liberals do. They, don't look what I'm doing, but I'll throw some dollars your way to keep it going. No problem. I mean, President Obama sent his own daughter to be an intern there last year. This guy's a heavy Democrat donor, and Hillary Clinton still has been silent about it. And I appreciate that my old boss, Ronna McDaniel, is being very open about her criticism about that. And I think that, again, she deserves to be criticized because it's such a hypocrisy to see that, This guy has a history of sexual allegations, and it's just swept under the rug. And it's okay because, again, he's a liberal and a supporter of the Clintons. Apparently, again, that can whitewash a lot of things, just like Carlos Danger over there getting only 2 years for sexual for sexting with a young teen. And I think all these things are just sick. And I guess if you're connected to the right people, you don't get in as much trouble, but it's just sick. And I think that, Democrats and these liberals got to speak up against their, the same things that you guys call out Republicans that they need to step up and say this and say that. How about you check into your own house? Check into your own house and then you can come back and criticize what we're doing, because it's obvious you guys got a lot of issues on your own over there. The Democrats they're positioned to lose again in 2018. I think that a lot of people are playing themselves by thinking that because some of the little controversies that Donald Trump gets into on Twitter are going to equate to one, Republicans losing the House or the Senate. First, Republicans are outraising Democrats probably 5-10 to 1 right now, and it's because the Democrats don't have a message. They don't have any. They don't have anything to unify around other than the fact they're always fighting Donald Trump. And to a lot of people, after a certain point, that's not enough. Unfortunately, in urban politics, you can use emotion and pull into this whole, race card and, issues of that nature, maybe to keep them a little more emotionally engaged. But even black folks are understanding now that the Democrat Party is not offering very much in terms of substance. I love talking to my black Democrat friends now that claim to be independents. That's how you can really tell that the Democrat Party is in a tailspin, because most of my black professional friends, they'll say they're conservative fiscally, yada, yada, yada. But most of my friends, I'll still say that I grew up with, I would consider them Democrats. But you know what they're saying nowadays? I'm independent. I'll vote for the best candidate, because they know that the Democrat Party has nothing to offer. Nothing at all. And so getting calls in here, I can kind of guess who this might be. Well, I can kind of guess. My day is not complete. I don't even feel like I'm getting a good show in if this guy don't call in and check in at least for a minute. My man Walter. What's up, Walter?
That's right, I'm back.
I told you, man, I don't even feel like I had a good show if you ain't called in, brother. How you doing today?
All right, man. I'm just here to straighten out a few things, clean house with some of the comments that some of the callers make. And you know what? Speaking of the Democrats, they were born out of hell. The party was birthed out of hell. And you know where they were. And you played a clip yesterday where they booed God.
There you go.
They ain't changed. It was, like I said, anything that was started from Satan's pits of hell, it can't be no good that come out of it. They always pivoting back to when they ain't winning nothing and they ain't deceiving their people enough.
Go to race.
Always pivot back to that race card.
Go to race. When all else fails, go to race.
Yeah, the politicians, that is. Unfortunately, they got a bunch of Kunta Kintes and Chicken Georges and Chizzies and all the rest of them. They vote for them regularly.
No, but I think half the problem is that when they have nothing of any substance to offer, that is the one thing that will engage. Because black folks can always agree to some racism, and I mean, even if you're not, to me that's the rallying cry. Well, hey, Donald Trump is racist. Hey, the Republicans in the House and the Senate, and they'll do that even here statewide. They'll find some one issue and say, see that. There you go. He's racist. Can't vote for him. And I think black people are starting to realize that to a certain degree, I'll say a certain level of sophistication, they're realizing that's just a BS argument at this point.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I hope a lot of blacks do wake up. I think they are waking up slowly but surely. But I heard this. You might have heard this before. If the Democrats lose between the 8 percentage points during the presidential election, if you can get some of those to switch over to Republican Party, I heard it was as low as 8%. That spells destruction for the Democrat Party.
If we ever got to a point where it was 15%, 15 to 20% for, just voting Republican, Democrat Party wouldn't win another election.
Yeah, and they don't ever need to win nothing else because all this stuff is based on attacking the rich. And I want all these people that be calling these programs talking about this class warfare, about Donald Trump's tax plan.
Right.
I don't want to hear one more liar calling and talking about it only benefits the rich. Hillary and Bernie, he loves to play that card. And by the way, Bernie, he's been worse than Hillary. That man wants 90% of the rich people's income. He's a flat-out socialist. And how that clown could have got one vote, I still can't understand. How Hillary could have got 2 votes, I still don't understand.
Well, I think the thing with Bernie, what I will give Bernie credit for more than Hillary is that he identified a group of ticked-off people and tried to work to their core. See, Hillary thought that because I'm Hillary Clinton and my last name is Clinton and we're looking at Donald Trump here, that you're going to vote for me. She had nothing. She gave no inspiring message, nothing of substance. I will say this: Bernie Sanders tapped into, because I believe a lot of Bernie Sanders voters voted for Donald Trump in the end. And you know what that group is? It's the white guys that are working these plants, and those have been traditional Democrats. And they realized, and they were listening, saying, "Wait a minute, Donald Trump is the one that's talking about let's get rid of NAFTA. He's the one that's talking about TPP is bad." And Bernie Sanders agreed with most of that, okay? And so for some of the guys that were Bernie Sanders supporters that might have been too soft in the beginning to support Trump, like they wanted something a little more soft and unique, Bernie Sanders was the alternative. And once he wasn't in the race, they came to us. And I think that was the difference between – I just think that Hillary Clinton, obviously, the only reason she won at the convention was because she had super delegates. If it had been just up to the delegates on the ground, regular delegates, Bernie Sanders probably would have won that convention for the Democrat convention. But those super delegates, which are the donors, the rich guys, your elected officials, like Jennifer Granholm was a super delegate. That tells you everything you need to know. And the level of idiocy to even have her in any kind of position to be making a decision for your party shows you what bad shape the Democrats are in. When they're sending Jennifer Granholm out to be your surrogate in Michigan, it just shows that you're tone deaf and stupid and have no appreciation how this woman wrecked Michigan for 10 years, for the lost decade.
You're so right. You're so profound. You just nailed it, man. It's amazing how the Democrats would dig up a hellion out of their grave to run for anything, any office, and they keep voting for even Charles Barkley said Negroes especially, been voting for the devil. Well, he said call them Devilcrats. He called them Democrats for over 40 years, and it still ain't got them nowhere.
Still haven't got any return on that investment. They still haven't gotten any return on that investment, Walter. That's the part that I just don't get that part. I mean, if I'm gonna invest in you, I need to get a return.
You know what? And you're so right. I've never seen. I have to say this. Your show will be the first one I said this on, so you'll get the credit. But check this out, man. I've never seen a time where I believe that a president is more hated than Jesus Christ.
This is facts.
That's Donald Trump.
This is
Those
facts.
People, they hate him more than they do Jesus, and the reason I say that because I've been running to strangers. We be having Christian conversations and good fellowship, but if I bring up, I'm talking about black folks and some whites too, but if I bring up Donald Trump's name, they will shout me down, shut me down, and try to hold me down. And I tell you what, I even had one lady at my house. When I get off of work, I was talking to her. I said, yeah. Somehow she brought up Donald Trump's name, and she out of nowhere, and started criticizing him. I said, I can't sit here and take this. So I spoke up, and guess what she said at the end of that conversation?
What's that, Walter?
I told her, I said, the majority of the people in my church voted for Donald Trump. I want you to know that. She said, okay, I tell you what. She says, I would never come to visit your church. So that's why I say Donald Trump is more hated than Jesus in some cases. You got Christians that'll pivot on you. If you tell them you voted for Donald Trump, it will cause much division inside the church, and we know outside of the church. I'm out of here, man.
Thanks a lot, Walter. I appreciate it, my friend. All right. Like I said, it's never a complete show without Walter dropping his words of knowledge and wisdom. I need those conservative voices to call in and join me sometimes. Sometimes it gets lonely here in Detroit. It gets lonely here at 910 on the radio sometimes, but I appreciate the callers. I appreciate both sides of the calls. I do. I really do. But Walter, like I said, he makes the day. By the time he calls at the perfect time as we're riding out sometimes. So appreciate it again, Walter. I appreciate even the doctor. Dr. Mack. Dr. Mack likes to call in and set me straight, and I don't mind that. Like I said, I'm a young man. I'm humble. You know, I don't claim to be right all the time, just most of the time. And so you can call in, and if you feel like I have not addressed something properly or maybe have left something out, feel free. You know, I don't take it personal. You know, sometimes I am definitely wrong, so I don't mind that one bit. We got oh, look at that. See, when I say that, someone else feels like they want to call in and correct me and say, let me know what I'm doing wrong here. But we're going to bring a couple more calls on the air here. We got a couple more minutes before I leave the air. And we got Michael. We got Michael on the line. We're going to bring Michael onto the line real quick. Michael, thanks for calling in, sir.
Thank you for calling in. I was going to talk about that. I don't know if most conservatives ever talk about antitrust, antitrust, because most of the 1% own most of the wealth in the corporations own most of the wealth. Where is the competition at? Because most of these companies that we got now, they are big like instances, big box stores, oil companies, food conglomerates. Right there. You know, people always talk about helping the small business out, but what happened at the small business is just constantly the people want to go to the big stores and big boxes and
that Michael, I don't have an answer for other than say it's pure capitalism. You know, that's that, and sometimes when you get too big, you don't get enough competition and the consumer loses out. You know, the prices become fixed. And so that's the only thing I can answer to is why we don't have more, competition is because the big companies get big and then guess what? They buy out everybody else. And it leaves us with, like you said, a Walmart and a Target. You know, it leaves us with one or two or three automotive companies. You see what I mean? Like, so these are the things that happen in America. I look at the cell phone industry. I think that they still have that competitive spirit because you still have all these little small or, smaller companies like the Crickets and, Metro PCS, but you still have your high-end Verizons and Sprints and all these other folks. So I think that it just depends on the industry. But at the end of the day, it's just capitalism. Capitalism it's not always – it doesn't guarantee winners and it doesn't guarantee the winners, and that's for sure in capitalism.
What about insurance companies? What about like insurance companies? I'm talking about when you pay for your car insurance.
We were just talking about that. Yeah, we were just talking about that, and I think that Tom Leonard is working on some solutions. But I think the biggest issue in Michigan is when you compare to other cities, other states, is that we have probably the most generous policies when it comes to when you get into accidents and the caps and the limits and things of that nature. And that's what starts our insurance rates higher than anybody else's. And then we start adding in the crime factors and the credit factors and everything else in Detroit. That's where it ends up being sky high compared to even if you live in Midland, Michigan, the price is still higher than it needs to be. Yeah, in Saginaw because
I live in Saginaw, Michigan. Yeah, because I listen to you guys talk about the insurance companies and stuff, and I attend a church where a lot of people have new cars, and they go lease their cars, I believe. I don't think anybody ever put any down. They put down money on their cars, then after the couple years the lease get over with, and then they go back and get another new car. And I'm noticing that. I would like to see nobody ever mentions about how much, what they did, their car payments and their insurance payments, but everybody feels like we always got to have a new car. And the reason why we buy new cars and every day so the police won't pull us over because we got a rust showing out of our cars or something that's the headlights are broken or whatever. I thought I'd just throw that on out there because we really need to. Government needs to be regulated in that area. There is not. It's not being it's not being consumer friendly. You understand what I'm trying to get?
Well, that's exactly what Tom Leonard's working on. And if you're in the Saginaw area, just be on the lookout for that. There are some relief efforts being made right now in the insurance practices. So thanks, Michael, for calling in and dropping that knowledge. I appreciate it.
I'm going to keep listening to your show. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Now, you know what? I guess Dr. Mack heard me calling out, and like I said, welcome to the show again, Dr. Mack.
Well, thank you, young man. First of all, let's engage in a re-education of Wayne Bradley. Okay. Now, the first thing we need to do is to dispel that myth about, well, black folks are all in with the Democrats, and this has been so terrible. First of all, let me explain something to you.
Mm-hmm.
When Frederick Douglass was alive, he was a Republican.
Right. There he was.
If I had been alive in the time of Frederick Douglass, I would have been a Republican.
Mm-hmm.
So the issue is not party. The issue is policy.
Right.
The reality of it is, Wayne, you have to remember, Hillary Clinton got over 3 million more votes than Donald Trump did. So this nonsense about Hillary Clinton had no message, that's false. Had it not been for the faux pas of the Electoral College, the only industrialized nation in the world, by the way, the United States, that has something that says you can win the majority of the votes in a democracy and not be in office. The United States is the only country in the world that has that. So what I'm saying is this. The first misstatement on your part is the Democrats had no message. Oh, they had a fantastic message.
What? His message, wait a minute, let's be fair, Dr. Mack. The message was, I'm not Donald Trump. That was her message.
No, to the contrary. No. To the contrary. You want to say that. The reality of it is, wait a minute, young man. I know facts are not your friend.
I know.
Let's deal on health care. Hillary Clinton was very clear on maintaining the Affordable Care Act. There's no question about that. Hillary Clinton was very clear on addressing the issue of police brutality and black folks being killed. Donald Trump, on the other hand, was very clear on, you know what, we got to support the police. And the way we support the police is we give them full reign to bust heads and crack skulls, all right? If you notice how many police organizations, young man, supported Donald Trump, as opposed to...
Wait a minute. That's very typical for police organizations to typically support Republicans because we are the party of law and order. I mean, let's just be honest about that.
But you see, you are not the party of law and order because the greatest law in this country is called the Constitution. And when you turn a police force...
But that's more of a local issue. Again, I think that... That's more of a local issue.
Like in Ferguson and Baltimore, you are not supporting the 14th and 15th Amendment, sir. So please don't tell me about law and order when the Constitution...
I mean, we are the party of law and order, though. We are.
You are not. How are you the party of law and order, sir? Tell me what legislation Republicans have put forth, for example, to protect black people's right to vote. Tell me what legislation Republicans have put forth that says, you know what?
Who put the voting rights? Who put the voting rights, the acts together in the first place, Dr. Mack?
And who tore it apart?
No. You just said. Tell me what Republican. I just gave you those reasons. So now you're going to say we tore it apart too? As the Democrats were the ones. The Democrat Party was the ones fighting all of our voting rights.
Sir, you're talking about the 1965 Voting Rights Act.
Right.
What I'm telling you is there were some Republicans, Everett Dirksen, who helped support the Voting Rights Act in 1955. There were some Republicans who were against it. There
was a bunch of Democrats that were against it as well, as the Kennedys, as a matter of fact.
No. Okay, wait a minute. Let me finish, sir. It was signed into order by President Lyndon Johnson, a Democrat.
And you know what Lyndon Johnson said when he did that? He said, "I'll have these the N words voting Democrat for the next 200 years." Look that up.
You know what?
And he was right.
I don't need.
Is that a fact? Is that a fact, Dr. Mack? Did he not say that? Did he not say that? Did he not say that he would have Negroes voting Democrat for the next 200 years?
He did not say that. What he said is that when
I thought you said you like facts. He did say that.
What he said is that we will lose the Southern vote for the next 40 years because of white backlash. So you want to talk about...
He said we will have N-words voting for the Democrat Party for the next 200 years.
Wait a minute. Let's talk about policy, Wayne, because you're the one that always saying, well...
Listen, Dr. Mack, because I'm because I want you to call in early tomorrow because I'm about to wrap up. I'm only got 1 minute left here. Like I always say, I do appreciate you calling in and giving me the re-education of Wayne Bradley. I do appreciate that. I hope you can call back in a little bit earlier tomorrow, and maybe one of these days, let me get you and Walter on the phone together. I think that would be that would be a gangster party right there. So thank you so much, Dr. Mack, for calling in today. I'm about to wrap up the show here. Next is Nolan Finley coming up right after me. You're listening to the Wayne Bradley Show on 910 a.m., your superstation. I'm here every day from 5 to 7 a.m. Thanks for listening in.
Bradley Show, conservative lyrical radio, giving you what you need to know. Listen up, it's the Wayne Bradley Show. It's the Wayne Bradley Show, conservative lyrical radio, giving you what you need to know. Listen up, it's the Wayne Bradley Show.
This Total Traffic Report is brought to you by Xarelto Tort Litigation. Attention, if you or a loved one used the weed killer Roundup and were diagnosed with cancer, you may be entitled to financial compensation. Call now for your free claim evaluation. 800-620-8715. That's 800-620-8715.
Can health insurance be more human, more compassionate? Can it be healthier? It's up to us to show our corner of the world how, and it starts with putting people first, a task we take deeply to heart. That's why we don't see our members as numbers. They're our neighbors, and we care about their health as much as they